All right. Thanks everyone for being here. We are Model Technology Solutions, and today we want to uh, talk about closing the top two cybersecurity threats. And the two that we're going to talk about today, they kind of flip flop back and forth over the years, right? But the overall top two that we see are software vulnerabilities and social engineering. And to kick us off here on our agenda, go through some quick introductions, dive into patching, social engineering. We'll do a couple of quick demos, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end and a little follow-up section with Steve. All right, so introductions. So who we are, Model Technology Solutions. My name is Mike Brimberry. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity here for Model. We are starting our 10th year in business, and we focus on cybersecurity, Microsoft 365, data center, as well as a few others. I'm a CISSP with 20 years of experience. I'm a virtual CISO for multiple organizations in various industries, cybersecurity speaker and panelist, and I hold multiple cybersecurity and industry certifications like encryption, networking, IT operations, and cybersecurity. So some of the core values for model technology is leading with integrity, right? That's doing what's right for the customer. We serve with compassion. Our aim is simply to help improve, just simply help. We like to be revolutionary. We love to innovate and find a way either to bring you information or in the technical solutions. And my favorite is live life like a mullet, right? We are professional, but we have the right balance of fun and we don't take ourselves too seriously. Once again, just to reiterate our core services, Microsoft 365, cybersecurity services, cloud and data infrastructure, and service desk. So patching is really just the process of applying updates to software, right? And either to address vulnerabilities or bugs or other deficiencies. But the primary reason of patching with widely used software is to address the security vulnerabilities that malicious actors might exploit. So if these vulnerabilities are left unaddressed, they can be a potential entry point for cyber attacks and leading to data breaches, compromise, and other undesirable outcomes. But other than that, we look to resolve software bugs. So not all patches are security related. Many patches address functional bugs or glitches in software. We look to ensure that the software performs as intended, without crashing or producing errors. We also look to improve software functionality, so patches can introduce new features or improve existing ones. So it's enhancing these software's overall functionality or performance. And maintain software compatibility. Software systems evolve, patches may be necessary to maintain interoperability between newer versions or newer technologies. So there's many ways that you can go for patching, right? It can be manual or it can be fully automated. And what the automation, right, is to apply those patches without too much user frustration or intervention, right? But that timely patch management, that's the critical part, right? Is we don't want to let those either vulnerabilities or bugs to hang out there where someone can take advantage of those vulnerabilities. So I wanted to throw some stats out here just to kind of drive this home. But according to the Ponemon Institute, 60% of breach victims said they were breached due to an unpatched known vulnerability where the patch was not applied. However, 62% claim that they weren't even aware that the organization's vulnerabilities were there before the breach. And according to EdgeScan, the average time to remediate internet-facing vulnerabilities was 57.5 days. Slight improvement over the prior year, which was 60.3. So that varies from one industry to another, though. Public administrators, for instance, had a MTTR of 92 days, where healthcare organizations had a MTTR of just 44 days. But the data shows that the smaller an organization is, the more quickly they tend to recover. And according to CVE details, out of the roughly 176,000 vulnerabilities, more than 19,000 had a CVSS score of 9.0 to 10.0. So 11% of vulnerabilities have a critical score. Checkpoint, 3 out of 4 attacks took advantage of flaws that were reported in 2017 or earlier. So some of these vulnerabilities out there are very old and they're not being patched. Palo Alto reported that 80% of the studied exploits were made public before the related CVEs have even been published. So more concerning is the length of time that passes between the published date and the date that it was discovered. So as a result, there's a good chance that an exploit is already available when the CVE is officially published. So the attackers are kind of one step ahead of the security professionals. And let's see, Veracode. They released in October 2020, found that more than 3/4 of applications have security flaws. And that said that only 24% of those are considered to have high severity flaws. Any questions about that? Let me pop over to a demo I have here real quick. So I wanted to talk about patching and how you can go and look about discovering some of these vulnerabilities or these weaknesses, right? So in some of those articles that we had talked about is, some of those organizations, they weren't even aware that they had vulnerabilities. So I just want to give you a couple of tips here of how you can go and look at and try to find some of these vulnerabilities so you can take action on them. So here in the security portal for Microsoft, and I should mention this is an E5. And under endpoints, weaknesses, Microsoft gives you a nice list of all these CVEs here. And you can look and see, so by date, we've got mediums, we've got a high here, and this is based off of Edge Chromium. And even though that this tenant is quite small, I only have one device in here, you can see that automatically the Defender suite here is exposing what type of weaknesses and how many devices we have that could be vulnerable to that. Now, maybe you can see here that there's no known public exploit available for this, and maybe that's a way that we would start to filter this to see if there were known public exploits that we would prioritize those. So let me pop in here on this one here. So threat insights, there's no public exploit, there's no exploit kit, has not been verified. However, we can start to get a list of all the devices that either need a patch or some other type of remediation for that weakness. So going back to our statement earlier, where organizations aren't aware of what vulnerabilities are out there, Microsoft has a tool right here that's going to surface all those vulnerabilities and what systems they are on. That will help us prioritize how we go about finding vulnerabilities and then patching those. So having that robust patch management process with a very quick MTTR is what is going to help your organization stay secure. Moving on to social engineering. So social engineering, right, is just the attackers trying to manipulate users into performing an action or something with some type of malicious intent, right? And there's many different tools in their toolbox that they use for this. Some of which include phishing, which most people are familiar with, but right, that's an attacker sending a fraudulent email or message or web link to try to trick someone into providing some sensitive information like a password or credit card number. Spear phishing is a more targeted version of phishing where the attacker customizes that um, link or email or phishing email for a very specific individual in an organization. Phishing, that's voice-based phishing where attackers use a phone call to trick the individuals into sharing sensitive data. So they might pose as a bank official, a tech support agent, or another role to just try to gain trust of whoever they're targeting. Similar to that, pretexting, so the attacker creates a fabricated scenario to obtain information from the target. For instance, they might pose as a HR representative to get personal information about an employee that they can then use to move up into either more targeted phishing or spear phishing attacks. Uh, and then on the line, baiting, tailgating, or piggybacking, as some would say, where they try to gain entry to a restricted area, right? Or quizzing, right? So everyone's heard that. You get on Facebook, you play these quizzes, and really it's just a data discovery tool for them to gain personal information about you, right? So they can start to build that profile to then have more personal information to target you and your employees with. So what are the factors for making individuals susceptible to social engineering, right? So think about this, authority. So people tend to comply with requests from figures of authority, or simply wearing like one of those yellow vests when you go on site, right? No one's going to question someone with an orange vest or a safety vest. If or a commitment, if someone commits to an idea or an action, they're more likely to follow through. So as they're baiting and pretexting, uh, when they get that buy off from that individual to click on a link or go to a website or give them a password, uh, using that attack of commitment helps to make sure that they follow through. Or people are easily persuaded by others whom they like. So as they're targeting individuals using whatever behavioral or psychological traits they can to make people like them, they're more likely to comply. The other one is scarcity, right? Uh, when users get an email and it says, "Hey, I'm the CEO. I need you to go get these gift cards right now because we're gonna get this big deal, or you need to wire this money to this account within the next 20 minutes, or there's only a limited amount of people that are going to be able to click on this link and get this free gift card." Using those type of tactics are actually quite effective. And social proof, right? So people often look at others to decide what action they should take in like unfamiliar situations, right? So they get a link and says, "Hey, 50 people just bought this product, and you should click here, and you get this prize," right? So it's really social engineering is targeting that human centric nature uh, of how humans behave, right? So a lot of times those technical defenses, they don't prevent all those attacks, right? We need to train the users to become aware so they are equipped with the knowledge and skills to recognize and resist social engineering tactics. Any questions or comments? Anything I missed? Give you some quick stats here. So really the cyber attackers are targeting your employees. This is a low risk, high reward focus for these attackers. Having a robust security and awareness training component is critical for your overall cybersecurity program. And just some quick stats here. Cisco in 2021 reported that 90% of breaches are linked to a phishing attack. 98% of attacks use some component of social engineering, and 96% of all phishing attacks use email. So real quick, back in the Microsoft Security Portal, and some organizations or many organizations already have some type of licensing with Microsoft. This tenant right here has an E5 license, and when you have the E5 license under email and collaboration, you have this attack simulation training. This is a wonderful way that if you already have this licensing in place, that you can get started with some type of security and awareness training program. So I want to show you how quick we can just get this started. So attack simulation and training, simulations, launch a simulation. So within the Microsoft suite, they have, it's quite a robust set of features in here. So on the first one, we have to select a technique, right? Credential harvest, attachments, links to malware, drive-by URL, OAuth consent grant, or if you're getting started, you can also just do a quick how-to guide to send that out to your users to show them when they receive a phishing email or a suspected phishing email, what do they do? What are the steps that they would need to do to report that? So that's a very powerful way to get started. But maybe in this one here, we'll use a credential harvest. So this is a phishing email that we're going to send to users that they're going to click on something and they are going to be prompted to enter their credentials. So let's look at that. First of all, we give it a name. One thing to note here is when you're naming these, depending on how your organization would utilize this, maybe you make this model demo August 2023, credential harvest. So we know that we've got track of that, and maybe next month we want to do a drive-by URL. So after we name it, they want you to select a payload and a login page. One thing to note here is this predicted compromise rate. And you can see that there's different types, but maybe a Facebook identity check, that's 34%. Maybe we try that one. And once we click on that, we can kind of get a preview of what it's going to look like. They're going to get an email that says your Facebook has been disabled for an identity check, and you've got to verify it and click on this button. And if you want to see what the login page is going to look like, once they click on it, it's going to look like this, and they type in their username and password. So we select that one and next. So depending on how your organization is set up, and you may want to do some pre-work to get a group of users that we're going to target, so it's not getting your other resource accounts, and that we can filter some of those out. So either you can use everyone in your organization, or if we had a specific group. See, I'll just select the Contoso team. And then further from that, if we wanted to exclude some users, we can do that at this step. And then based off of what happens, do we want to assign some training, or we can use the recommended? There's no training. You could redirect them to a customized URL. But within the Microsoft one, they can select some that are recommended, or you can select your own and then set a due date for what, we give the users 30 days to take the training. So next step here is to assign some training, and Microsoft has a good amount of training. They've got some recommended ones here. You can go through the all training section, and you can see here how long each one of these are. So some of them are very short, kind of medium, 7 minutes, maybe would be the longest that I see in this list here. So it's not overly burdensome on the users, right? They'll still be able to get in there, take their training, and move on. If you want, you can also preview that to kind of filter that down to one that you're really looking for, to target some more specific type of training. So what happens? Do we want all users to take that training, or just the ones that are compromised, or the ones that clicked on the payload? I'll just select compromise for now. What does the landing page look like? Let me give you a little quick preview of this here. So once they click on it, they'll get this. Hey, you were just phished. It's okay. Let's learn from this. Give you some further details around the contents of it, what languages are supported. Oh, I should probably add that in there because I thought that was kind of neat. So if you want to help users, they may get these little payload indicators that will show different components of the email. Like, hey, this email looks weird. You don't usually get emails from this person. Be careful with these. Different pieces like that. You can add logos, and then down here add your landing page. Notifications, let me show you this here. So go into the recommended, whatever your default language is. So these positive reinforcements, preview of that. So if they report a phish, this is an email that they would get back, thank you for reporting that phishing message. What are the delivery preference? Let's do during the exam. Default, this is not applicable in this situation because it's only users that click the payload. And then training and reminder. Do you want to give them a twice a week reminder or a weekly that says, hey, you've, since you clicked that, you have to take this training? And how do we want to launch it? Immediately? Do we want to schedule this later? What time? How many days to end that? There we go. And do we want to have any regional time zone for delivery? Let's just do that. You can send a test to yourself to see what it's going to look like. And then once you're ready, click submit. And you wait. And you wait. And while that's saving, why is this important? Why do we want to have phish testing? Why do we want to have training? Depending on what cybersecurity framework your organization is basing your cybersecurity program around, there's going to be certain controls and safeguards around proving that you are doing phish testing and phish training. So within here, it's not going to show it right away. So we just started this. But after this event takes place, it's going to track and log how many users have been phish tested, how many have been compromised, and it's going to keep all of those records in this one system. So you're going to be able to satisfy some of those security framework controls by having phish testing and training and being able to produce logs of who has taken that training and when. So it's really important. So, if you're doing ISO 27001, there's going to be components, or different NIST frameworks are going to have components and requirements for phish testing and training. So maybe this is not the complete overall cybersecurity and awareness program, but this is one large component that you're going to need for your organization to just start to combat those, like those stats that we were talking about earlier. 90-something% of all attacks start with a phishing email. How are we going to train our users, and how are we going to equip them to really be that last mile of defense in our organization, right? It only takes one click from one person, and starting here is a great foundation for having that as your part of your cybersecurity program.